Check, check, 1, 2. Wireless mic test, wireless mic test.
Good evening. Welcome to the Springford Area School District's work session, Monday, August 15th, 2022.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Springford Board of School Directors believes the community has the right to bring before the board issues and concerns they may have about items on the agenda or about items in general which affect the district or their children. Because of this belief and philosophy, the board will schedule a time at the beginning and conclusion of every meeting to have an opportunity for community members to share their concerns with the board. At the start of the meeting, members from the public may comment on agenda items only. The school board will move through the meeting agenda, then at the end, when prompted, there will be a time for public comment. This meeting is being filmed to be broadcast on community cable channels and online. Individuals attending to make public comment should be aware that they are being videotaped. Speakers will be asked to state their name and the area in which you reside before your comment.
All right, good evening. Welcome to our work session here this evening. And if Mrs. Bickard, you can let us know who is present today.
Yes, in person we have Mrs. Deerdorf, Mrs. Earl, Dr. Motzer, Mr. Schaefer, Mrs. Weingarten, and Dr. Wright. Absent is Mrs. Hermans, Mr. Jackson, and Mrs. Zazowski.
Thank you very much. Some announcements this evening. I'd first like to announce that and welcome Dr. Motzer here with us today and make aware that she will be taking over the committees that Mrs. Sullivan had been a part of previous to that. So that would be community relations, extracurricular, curriculum and technology, the ad hoc, if and when that would to meet, and the American Legion for that. So if there's any board discussion about that, we're open for this discussion on that. Okay. I'd also like to announce that prior to this evening's meeting, the Superintendents Committee met. That is chaired by Mr. Schaefer. Mr. Schaefer, did you want to share with us what we discussed? Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. So obviously, with Mr. Rizzo's position, it's quite important that we provide good feedback as we go forward throughout the school year. So we talked about what our schedule will be for that. And I believe we've made pretty good advancements from how the committee and more specifically the board has been able to formally evaluate and provide that feedback for the superintendent. So appreciated the meeting.
Thank you. So moving on then to public to be heard on agenda items only. So is there anybody in our audience here? If not, is there anyone on Zoom? There is.
Michael, you may now make public comment. Please unmute yourself, then state your first and last name as well as your township.
Hi, good evening. Michael Lebedzinski, Limerick Township, talking on agenda item 5D2 regarding the $12,000 annual membership to DVCEE. There's a great opportunity here for our newest elected board members to make good on their campaign promise to eliminate wasteful spending, especially in light of the recent approval of the largest school tax increase in 10 years in the midst of a global recession with inflation at levels not seen in 40 years. Seems like a no-brainer to make good on your promise. The board still has yet to articulate the purpose of the languishing DEI effort, show evidence of the problem policy is attempting to solve, and point to the statutory authority vested to them by the Pennsylvania State Legislature. As I'm sure Mr. Fitzgerald or the board's legislative committee member has made you aware, several lawsuits have already been filed in Pennsylvania against Pennsylvania school boards seeking declaratory judgment clarifying that these districts do not have the legal authority to implement DEI programs. For reference, the word equity does not appear in the U.S. Constitution anywhere. nor does it appear in the Pennsylvania Constitution, nor in any of the enabling laws that empower public school districts in Pennsylvania. Attaining equity implies and requires discrimination, which is expressly prohibited by federal statutes and the district's own policies. Before voting next week on this wasteful spending, I encourage board members to spend some time learning about the DVCEE, its leadership team, Dr. Jarvis, his assistant, Danya, and the motley group of, quote, partners that comprise this pay-for-play scheme, all springing up to capitalize on district DEI spending. Also look at the DVCEE's connection to University of Pennsylvania, and more importantly, Abington School District. To save you some time, concerned parents and taxpayers have already done much of this legwork through FOIA and RTK requests of invoices, checks, emails, cataloging a long laundry list of the partners and the flow of money from taxpayers to the school districts to these consultants, not unlike Mr. Riley from Penn State. Ask yourself, what value does the district get from this $12,000? What is the tangible value that we're going to see? And are we only planning to spend $12,000, or are there plans to engage DVCCE on their 3-day, $150,000 plus discovery workshop? Lastly, ask yourself what legal entity you are signing a membership contract with. Is it actually DVCEE, or is it University of Pennsylvania, or is it Abington School District? Despite the euphemistically nice sounding description in tonight's agenda, you should understand that the collaboration does not occur between school districts. It occurs from the DVCEE, which has affiliated groups all over the US, down to the school districts. So please, board members, understand and do your research on exactly what you're voting for before you vote. Thank you.
Steve, you may now make public comment. Please unmute yourself, then state your first and last name as well as your township.
Steve Fry, Royersford, PA. I would like to make a couple of comments. First, similarly, I have concerns about renewing the membership for the DVCEE, which is agenda item 5D2. I don't think we should approve this membership unless we can substantiate the value we're getting from it. Again, there's been a lot of issues raised around equity and inclusion over the past year. I don't feel like we have a clear handle on some things, and my understanding would be that membership in the DVCE is supposed to be helping us in that regard. And I'm just not sure we're getting the value out of it that we should be. I would also say in regards to the EDI policy, which is agenda item 8B2, I've sent several comments by email, but I'll mention a couple here as well. I still have concerns about the language that's being used. For instance, I think the criteria around historic issues can worsen current marginalized groups or students if we're not careful. So I think if that's going to be part of the policy, the implementation needs some very careful consideration. And also from what I've seen, cultural proficiency and cultural responsiveness, depending on what it actually is, may include adoption of Marxist frameworks and actually have not a lot to do with what would traditionally be called culture. So I'm also somewhat concerned about what that really is when it's operationally implemented. Thank you.
At this time, there are no further public comments to be heard on Zoom.
Thank you very much. All right. Then we will move on to board and committee reports. The first one is the student rep report.
Good evening. Today we have for you the August student rep report. So in terms of some reminders we have for parents and students, since we're getting ready for the new school year, which is in fact approaching soon on August 29th, we have some reminders. We urge students, especially in high school, to complete their school summer assignments, and we also hope that parents will be uploading the mandatory health forms and immunizations based on their child's grade level. We also had an email sent out about summer food programs for those who might be in need of those. And as always, in the House offices, we do have work permits available based on age eligibility. And in terms of just key schedule release information for this school year, for kindergarten to 4th grade, that will be occurring on August 16th. For 5th through 8th grade, it will happen on August 17th. And for high schoolers, 9 to 12, it will be on August 18th. All 3 of those dates on 3 p.m. is when students would be able to see their schedules. In terms of some upcoming events, I would have to start out with the most exciting one, which is that we have the first day of school on August 29th. And in terms of some open house information for the respective grades, as you can see here, we have the elementary schools, and that ranges from as early as August 30th through September 20th. We also do have Labor Day observed on September 5th, and since I am a senior, I'm a bit biased, I have to include this information, but senior cap and gown assembly will be on September 20th. And for sophomores, we will have the class ring assembly on the 20th as well.
And as for some recent events that just occurred, the Spring Forward Blue and Gold Scholarship Golf Outing occurred on July 30th. First day verification opened up for parents on August 1st. High school fall sports started today, August 15th, and middle school sports will start September 6th.
That's it for the school board meeting. Thank you again.
Great, thank you very much. Any board question, comments? Great, then we would move on to policy.
We have not yet met this month, or we're not meeting this month.
Right, so some of the committees that we would normally have that did not meet because of summer, we traditionally don't meet in August, and that would be the same for the curriculum and technology meeting. Finance and property did not meet either. And so what about the Western Center?
Well, we did meet, but I was not aware that Mrs. Sosowski was not coming because I didn't bring my notes, and she had all the notes that she took, so I don't have anything with me.
All right. And Mrs. Sosowski was a last minute, was unable to make it, so she was, I'm sure she will be happy to share her notes at the next board meeting. And Assistant Superintendent's report, Dr. Mary?
Hi, good evening. We do have a brief update. The summer's been very busy in Spring Forward. This is the second year of the Summer Rams, which was very successful with 386 different students attending throughout the 3 sessions. Thank you to Katie Gardy and Kim Bayer for the many hours they put into organizing and ensuring the success of these programs. In addition, Erin Hughes and Sarah Toback as the Summer Rams coordinators, and all of the teachers who made this yet another successful year of Summer Rams. We also had 40 students participating in summer band programs, and we ran another successful year of the pre-K readiness programs to prepare our newest Rams and welcome them to the district. And just in a minute, Dr. G will talk about the success of the ESY program. The hum is definitely starting in the beginning of the school year as we're quickly approaching the start. Starting tomorrow, our new hires will be joining us for a 3-day session as part of their induction program. I'd like to take a minute to also recognize our curriculum department, Katie Gardy, Jen Reinheimer, and Brianne Angelucci, for all the work that they've put into preparing for our new staff and preparing a tremendous program for them in the next couple of days. And then we look forward to the return of our staff next week for 3 days of professional development as well. And finally, as Aditi mentioned earlier, we have our first day verification open. Parents and guardians should log into the Skyward Family Access to complete the first day verification process. And families may complete the first day verification process on a desktop, laptop, smartphone, web browser, or tablet. Just a quick note too that teacher information, homerooms, and schedules will not be available until the first day verification is complete. And thank you, Aditi, for sharing those dates earlier. With that, I will turn it over to Dr. G.
Thank you, Dr. Murray. Good evening. I have 3 short
reports as well. In the area of ESY, just as the Summer Rams was successful, ESY was very successful this year. We had 162 children participate over 5 weeks. So I'd like to acknowledge all of the support staff, the teachers, the buildings and grounds, the building administrators, and the special ed supervisors who were involved in running that smoothly. Secondly, the Springford Area School District, and along with CPAC, which is the parent committee, the Special Education Parent Committee, and the A-Team have collaborated to host a family-friendly special education resource fair for parents in our community and the surrounding community. This fair will highlight local special needs service providers to any of the programs and services that are in the area to families and local community members. Information regarding this event can be found on our district's website. The event is scheduled for October 15th at the high school and will start at 10 and end around 1 o'clock. So we're excited about that. Secondly, even though we're starting school in a brief couple of weeks, registration is still going very strong. I'd like to acknowledge again the registration department for their unwavering work and support in this area. The department has been working hard, and just in this month alone, up to August 15th, they've registered 84 new families to the district. So I would like to extend a welcome to those 84 families and welcome to Ram Country. Thank you. That's the end of my report.
Thank you very much. Any board comment? Great. Then we'll be moving on in this work session. So it's not a voting meeting, but we're here to Oh, I beg your pardon. Oh, Mr. Fitzgerald, how quickly we forget.
Dr. Wright, thank you. Or
vacation.
Mr. Rizzo, thank you. I heard the reminder. No, just briefly, a brief report. Earlier this month, I had the pleasure myself and my colleague, Kelly Hodge, met with the entire administrative staff, all principals, assistant principals, supervisors, to review the regulations under Title IX. As you may know, there are a number of different complex roles that individuals now take under the regulations that were put into place 2 years ago. It was good to have a refresher on investigations, decision-making, appeals, and really where the law is and may be going. As you know, and I've mentioned, there are changes coming to Title IX. The Biden administration notified the general public of a notice of proposed rulemaking, which means the changes that we saw 2 years ago will change again, probably over the next 6 to 8 months. So we may be back talking about modifications at a later date. But suffice to say, this is a very active area in light of these changes over the last couple of years.
Thank you very much. All right. So we will then be moving on to look at the agenda for next week's voting meeting. So looking at the minutes, any questions or concerns about the minutes? No? Then we're looking at personnel, part 4. You can note in there that Mr. Miscavige will be moving to as moved, to our new athletic director from social studies. I know my own children had him as a social studies teacher. They were very happy for him, and as a coach also. And that Mr. Rigner will be leaving us, so, retiring. Yes. So we wish him well on that. Looks like we'll also be looking at the hiring of the new house principal for the 7th grade center. Right?
That is correct, and I'll acknowledge them all next week as part of my report. Yep.
Thank you. Any questions on Section 5 on finance? Board, any questions on Section 6, Programming and Curriculum?
I would just say, is the board interested in hearing just sort of the key points of the health and safety plan, which would be 6A?
Thank you, yes.
As you know, as a requirement of the ARPESR funding, we're required to maintain and update a health and safety plan every 6 months. The last time we reviewed and approved was back in February, so we're at our 6-month mark. So I'm just going to talk about what would be sort of the big key points tonight, and I have kind of outlined them, and you have access to a draft of the health and safety plan, and it is posted on our website under the board, under the school board section. But just the main key points, we are looking towards having optional masking, whether we're in low, medium, or high. We are going to cease with this physical distancing. We've received recommendations from Montgomery County Office of Public Health that we should go back to a normal start with normal spacing. We are not going to be contact tracing. CDC and Montgomery County, it would seem, Montgomery County is following CDC's guidelines. That's kind of where they're landing right now, but we're meeting on Thursday. Contact tracing will not need to occur. There is some question as to whether or not if there is any kind of an outbreak, but we've yet to receive an official definition of what an outbreak might be. So at this point, we will not be doing contact tracing. We will not be quarantining. We will not be quarantining students that might be near a student who tested positive. As far as general notifications, at this point, we're not planning on sending out general notifications. What we found towards the end of the year was that we were receiving a lot of notifications and there was a saturation point. As I surveyed our staff and I reached out to our association leadership and our nurses and our committee, that's kind of where we all landed. We do welcome visitors this year, whether we're in low, medium, or high. And then we are going to continue to offer testing to staff as needed, not setting up regular sites or anything, but on an as-needed basis. The last piece that is going to be a little bit different is that we're not planning to maintain the dashboard throughout the 22-23 school year. We did discontinue that this summer, and we're looking to not continue with that. We don't need to report weekly to Montgomery County or the state at this point. It seems to me like the vibe that I'm getting, and I've not received official guidance from Montgomery County, but the vibe I'm getting at PDE and at CDC and most likely MCOPH is they want to do more normalizing of COVID and moving forward. So those are the big points of the health and safety plan. The whole thing is there for review on the website. And I'll take any questions.
I just have a question because since it does seem like we're moving towards normal, if it's a PDE requirement to have the health and safety plan, why are they continuing to have that requirement?
So there's two overlapping issues. PDE is requiring it so as to provide a process to count hours for purposes of the school code and subsidy in the event that individuals are going to be remote for some time period, because ultimately how hours are counted are through the Secretary of Education. So this is the process they're utilizing. It's their template. It's called a 520.1 emergency resolution template. I don't know if we've approved it yet or not. So that was the deal with the PDE side of it for the hours. And then there's the health and safety plan requirements as per the federal dollars that all districts received through the ESSER grants. That would continue theoretically through the sunset of the grant, which I think is 2024. If the money's spent down, then I think at that point you no longer have to do it, but for the foreseeable future, every 6 months, you'll be addressing the grant side of it. And I think this will be the last year that PDE will require the 520.1 emergency resolution. I think assuming everything progresses towards normal, next year we'll be on our own again.
Cool, thank you. And Mr. Rizzo, are you hopeful that from the meeting tomorrow that there would be documented guidance from the county?
I am. What has seemed to be more the answer is they're referring us to CDC. When you go to Montgomery County's website, their links now go directly to the CDC site.
Awesome.
But as soon as I get it, I'll share it.
Cool, thanks.
And just to clarify, is that when, let's just say, a student or teacher or someone is test positive, is the recommendation, hey, hang home for 5 days, test negative, come back? Or is that what you're hoping to come back with?
Yeah, as of right now, the isolation piece, not the quarantine piece, the isolation piece. And for clarity, isolation is a positive case. Quarantine is a healthy student that was exposed, or staff member that was exposed to a positive case. We're not quarantining, but the recommendation is still to isolate for 5 days, from either the onset of symptoms or from the onset of the positive test result. So we would still be doing the 5 days isolation, and then on days 6 through 10, I'm waiting to hear whether they're still making the recommendation to mask while in school.
Yeah, I think that'll be really helpful, just having that constant guidance spelled out for everyone. Thank you.
Any other board questions on that? Thank you very much for that. Moving on, Section 7, conferences and workshops. Questions? Section 8, other business.
I have just a question, and I don't know if we can do this or not. For A, these policies that are going to be rescinded and retired, if we could put some kind of a parenthetical notice in there that this does not mean that we're throwing this all in the trash, that these policies have all been incorporated into other policies, or we're not abandoning these topics. They've been taken up into other policies, and no fear. So I don't know if we could just put a short note that these are not going to be completely rescinded.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. And in working with Mr. Fitzgerald's office since January of 2021, we took on the task of compacting our policies, our 300s, our 400s, and our 500s, which is, I believe, administrative employees for 300, professional employees for 400, and confidential employees for 500, all to one section of 300s that says employees. So we're just compacting that all, which means we're retiring a lot of policies that were kind of antiquated. Now they're updated and more concise.
What was the number of policies you started with? I think we talked about that at the last meeting. It was consolidated down to pretty impressive.
I think year two of my time here, we did about 120 policies. This was somewhere in the neighborhood, 90 plus policies I think we're condensing. Yeah.
That's impressive.
We have a good policy committee. I'm told it's the best committee meeting. I don't know.
All right, any other comments on policy? Or other business, that was Section 8. All right, then Section 9, informational item. Any questions about that? This was a part that I had asked be put on the agenda. It is common practice within districts for school boards to basically kind of approve the handbook to be able to see any changes that are made to student handbooks from year to year, since we are, in a sense, the governing body over what is put out there in the handbooks. So it's, the handbooks are organized by the administration and they work collaboratively to create them. So we are in working with the administration and with Mr. Rizzo, we thought the best way to do this for our district was to put it in there as an informational item. So we are not approving them, but they are there for you to look at as a board. If you have any questions, to please bring it, to the table in there. So that's why that item is there.
Where are they?
So you want to go ahead and answer that?
They were linked in the board agenda.
Oh, okay.
Or I'm sorry, the board memo. Yeah.
They can also be found on
Oh, yeah, I did see them.
the district website. They would also be.
And they're also on the district website, correct. Aaron's nodding her head yes, so yes.
Yes, so you would be able to. There's one for all of elementary, shares the same format, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the high school. So you would want to go to each page on the website, and from there you should be able to find the student handbooks, and they're posted there. All right. If there's no other questions at this time, it is board comment. Any board comment at this time?
I just have one quick comment. I'm really impressed by the number of things that happened over the summer between summer RAMs, the pre-K readiness, everything you guys mentioned. It's pretty unbelievable how many kids that impacted. So thank you for that report.
All right. tonight. If there is no other board comment, we would be...
I'm sorry, just a
Yes.
follow-up to that. Is there any, besides the statistics for attendance, do we have any way to measure efficacy or anything along those lines?
We did do surveys. Katie, you could probably talk to that a little bit more about some of the results of that, but we did give surveys just to gather some data on how effective it is. Katie, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I do have data, and I will share that at our curriculum and technology meeting next month, both for summer RAMs and for the pre-K program.
Thank you, perfect.
Any other board comment? If there is no more board comment at this time, then we would move to public to be heard. Any public in the room? Is there anyone in Zoom?
No comments on Zoom at this time.
So if there is no board comment, no public to be heard?
Sorry, one just came in.
Okay, so thank you. There is one on Zoom. Thank you.
Michael, you may now make public comment. Please unmute yourself, state your first and last name, as well as your township.
Hi, Michael Lebajinsky, Limerick Township. Mr. Schaefer stole my thunder on the question around the qualitative and quantitative metrics. I would certainly appreciate a follow-up next week, specifically around the details of the survey that was sent out. Just wondering, is it more of a, how did you feel about the education over the summer survey, or is there some sort of, how do we know that the program is successful, right? How do we know that how much of the learning loss was made up, right? Is there some, more data-driven metric, qualitative or quantitative, that we can use to point to that? I'd appreciate a follow-up in next week's update on that. Secondly, regarding the EDI policy that's up for approval next week, I'm curious if any board member can give a specific example of feedback from parents or other members of the committee, which you have incorporated into the policy, proposed policy, when comparing it to previous drafts. That would be a good faith effort to ensure that the feedback's actually being heard and incorporated and not just being listened to. And then lastly, more so for the community legislative update, the Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court has scheduled a hearing for October 18th in Pittsburgh to hear oral arguments on the Pennsylvania School District mask mandate lawsuit. After this hearing, the court will issue a decision to clarify whether Pennsylvania school districts can or cannot mandate masks. In my opinion, while the specific issue seeking declaratory judgment is mask mandates, the larger question before the court is limits on school districts' general powers, especially when those powers are granted to other Pennsylvania state agencies such as health and safety. Thank you.
Any other comments on Zoom?
At this time, there are no further public comments to be heard on Zoom.
Okay, if there are no other comments to be heard, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Meeting adjourned.